Hello, everybody. Hope you're doing well. Tonight's presentation is on the divisive subject of gay marriage. This topic came up when a poster online posed the question, can you give an argument against gay marriage that isn't based on religion? In the interest of full disclosure, I have to tell you at the outset that I usually get in trouble when I venture into this territory. Invariably, I'm misunderstood. I also have to explain that I live in a very conservative part of the country and a very religious section. For instance, there are more churches per square mile where I live than there are gas stations. And so you can imagine immediately how it must be tough for a gay couple living in this area. An anecdote bearing on this point is rooted in an experience that I had about a year ago. It started when my wife and I discovered that we had spiders in our garage. It was springtime, I think, and there was an explosion of insects outside, and the result was spiders. And so we had to go get a bug bomb or poison, something to kill the spiders. My wife hates creepy crawlies, so she was eager to go to the store to pick up something. To get out of our subdivision, however, you had to go to a stop sign. To the right of the stop sign was the house where the gay couple lived.
What are you doing?
What? Spider.
Don't point. Party, and we continue to keep asking her, and she doesn't seem to want to do anything, but we really think we need to. She's been working there for 30. Oh, crap! I can't believe you.
That anecdote really happened, sadly. So you can tell just how good my diplomacy skills are, just judging on that. But getting to the back to the whole gay marriage thing, the question at the outset was, are there any arguments against gay marriage that are on a rational humanistic basis? And I always thought that the old religion is the cause of all social discord argument was a bit of a canard, because a lot of Darwinists are very ruthless when it comes to the issue of procreation. According to evolutionary theory, all species have a prime directive, and that prime directive is to breed. From amoeba all the way up to human beings, we all are guided by this impulse. And anything that gets in the way of that impulse is deemed as a dysfunction. And it's not just gays. I mean, gays aren't singled out. I mean, if you look at anything that doesn't result in procreation, it tends to be stigmatized. Which is why, monks make our flesh crawl and celibate people make us inherently suspicious. And we have movies called things like The 40-Year-Old Virgin, because we're making fun of these groups because something deep inside us is calling forth a negative reaction. And we pretend we might want to give an intellectual veneer to it. But really, it's the Darwinian imperative in us, discouraging anything that does not result in breeding. And unfortunately, gays get caught in that. But had religion never existed, we would still experience crawling flesh at the sight of a celibate. We'd still make fun of the 40-year-old virgin. And unfortunately, we'd still probably be throwing gay kids in dumpsters, writing them off as weaklings and misfits. So That being said, at the outset, I'd have to say that there's something deeply irrational in our impulse, but it's also deeply wired into us, unfortunately. So you're always going to have people who are different being stigmatized by the herd, and being totally conscious of that within myself. I have to admit that being older right now, and I'm not young anymore, I've had a little bit of resistance to the whole gay marriage thing. Not based on homophobia so much as on stodginess. If you knew me, you'd crack up at all the old-timey novels I read and all the history books that litter my study. Hell, I even smoke a pipe. The slang of tweens makes me wince. New technology sends me into tailspins of idiocy. I have no idea why pound signs are now called hashtags, or why young people love their violent radio games. I never opposed gay marriage because of gays so much as something worse. It was new. I find most newness despicable. Intolerable, because it makes a lazy mind like my own dig itself out of its own well-worn rut. My only standing rationale to thinking gay marriage is on its face kind of silly is the fact that gays are such a small number in our society, in any society for that matter. It'd be like remaking cars to accommodate left-handed people when righties are 90% of society. To me, gays were never numerically significant enough to justify upturning an age-old institution. It's usually at this point that someone will try to talk me off the ledge by saying that change isn't always bad, and I admit change in the big picture is good, but in the meantime it causes distress and anxiety. There's a quote, and I can't remember who said it exactly, but it was to the effect that science is supposed to work in a fashion whereby men come up with a new idea, the establishment sifts through it, institutes a peer review process, and weighing the evidence, adopts it or rejects it based on its merits. That's not what actually happens, though. Whenever new ideas come, the establishment's incredibly resistant. The new idea only gains an ascendancy when the older generation dies out, and the newer generation comes in. And statistically, he's right. If you look at any scientific breakthrough in history, all the advances were met with heckling and violence. For instance, I remember reading an article on how Popular Mechanics refused to send a journalist to witness Wilbur and Orville Wright's first flight, saying that they didn't need to go. They already knew it was a hoax beforehand. Or there was a guy named Professor Deville at the Sorbonne in France. He had a PhD in acoustics, and when Edison invented the phonograph, Deville denounced it, saying that Edison was tricking the public with ventriloquism. Historically, I league myself with the stodgy idiots who were wrong, whereas the youth of today are clearly throwing their weight behind the Wright brothers and Edison. While I have respect for some of the well-reasoned points of the gay activists, I'm temperamentally an inactivist. Is that a term? Well, I guess you could call me socially conservative. That would be a good synonym for someone who's an inactivist, someone who's inactive, because I am inactive at any rate. I rely on inertia, tradition, laziness. My only consolation is that sometimes when you do try out new things, they do go terribly, terribly wrong, like the millions who died under the newfangled idea called communism, or when people were told to be part of the future in 1910 and to drink uranium water. In my most secret recesses, I imagine myself smiling smugly on the sideline saying, I was never stupid enough to drink uranium water. But the truth is, gay marriage is probably not comparable to communism or uranium water. So history is probably on their side on this one. But I'll struggle against change and resist so long as I have a CD in my disc player, a PC on my desk with a Windows XP operating system, and shoelaces on my shoes instead of Velcro. Damn you, future.